What happens when one of Britain's most respected actors walks into what should have been a routine morning television interview, only to find himself face to face with a host determined to tear him down? In just 32 seconds, a simple question about a new film would spiral into one of the most shocking live television meltdowns ever caught on camera, exposing the darker side of daytime TV and leaving millions of viewers speechless. Sir Anthony Hopkins sat beneath the soft studio lights, adjusting his tie with the quiet confidence of a man who had long since conquered Hollywood. The legendary performer, known for breathing humanity into even the most monstrous characters, had no idea he was about to face one of his most volatile performances yet. Across from him, Lorraine Kelly wore her familiar morning show smile, but today, something in her eyes was sharper. Calculated. Lorraine, cheerfully. "So, Anthony, tell us about this new film of yours. I have to say, watching the trailer, I couldn't help but wonder, are you maybe getting a bit too old for these action roles?" The words hung in the air like a toxin. Anthony's eyebrow arched, just slightly, the only sign of surprise. He'd handled every kind of interviewer, the intrusive, the pretentious, the cruel. But this felt different. There was something almost gleeful in her tone. "Anthony," calmly. "Well, Lorraine, I think age brings experience, and experience brings depth to any character. I don't see myself as too old. I see myself as seasoned." Lorraine's smile sharpened. No warmth this time. Only the satisfaction of a predator catching the scent of blood. "Lorraine seasoned, yes. But surely you realize audiences want fresh faces now. Younger energy. Don't you think it's desperate? Clinging to these roles instead of stepping aside for the next generation?" A muscle in Anthony's jaw twitched. This wasn't the conversation his team had arranged. This was meant to be a friendly chat. A bit of promotion. Not an ambush. Anthony. Steady, firm. I wouldn't call it clinging. I'd call it passion for the craft. Something I suspect you might not fully understand, given your background. The jab was quiet, surgical, but it landed. Lorraine's eyes flashed. The mask slipped. Lorraine. Mocking laugh. "My background? At least I didn't have to play a cannibal to get noticed. Some of us built our careers on talent, not shock value." The reference to Hannibal Lecter was a low blow, and everyone in the studio knew it. That role had made Hopkins immortal, a masterclass in psychological precision. To reduce it to shock value was ignorance bordering on insult. "Anthony." Voice drops, controlled fury. "Shock value? Is that what you think acting is? Exploring the human condition, creating characters that endure? That's shock value to you?" Lorraine leaned forward, pressing her advantage. "Lorraine, oh come now, Anthony. Don't be so sensitive. We all know that role was you, hamming it up for the cheap seats. Real actors don't need theatrics." The cruelty was almost elegant in its precision. A dismissal of decades of artistry in a single line. Anthony's hands resting on his knees, curled slowly into fists. Anthony, quietly. "Theatrics, you say? Then what would you call this performance, Lorraine? Because this isn't journalism. It isn't even entertainment. It's cruelty, dressed up in television lights." The room went silent. Even the crew froze. Lorraine blinked, caught off guard, before her smile snapped back into place. "Lorraine, cruelty? I'm just asking what viewers are thinking. Isn't it time to admit your best days are behind you? That maybe, just maybe, you're holding on to something that's already gone?" The words sliced through the air, designed to wound, to humiliate. But Hopkins only stood, slowly, calmly. "Anthony, my best days are the ones I choose to define as my best, not the ones a failed television presenter decides to measure from her little morning show throne." The impact was instantaneous. Lorraine's face went white, then flushed crimson. The audience could almost hear the fracture, the moment her composure shattered. Lorraine, faltering, failed. I've been on television longer than most people have been alive. The words echoed through the stunned studio. Defiance and desperation colliding in real time. And in that moment, it was clear to everyone watching. This wasn't just an interview gone wrong. It was a reckoning. Lorraine, defiant, voice trembling. I've interviewed prime ministers, celebrities, royalty. Who are you to call me failed? Anthony rose slowly from his chair, and suddenly the power dynamic shifted. He towered over the seated host, his calm presence filling the studio. Anthony, you've interviewed them, yes, but have you ever actually listened to them? Or were you too busy planning your next cruel little dig? The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of this stunning collapse in live television decorum. Across Britain, viewers reached for their phones, recording the moment, knowing instinctively they were witnessing something that would echo for years. Lorraine shot to her feet, her chair spinning violently behind her. Lorraine, how dare you? How dare you come on my show, in my studio, and speak to me like that? You think because you won a few awards decades ago, you can treat people however you please? Anthony, steady, voice rising with authority. Awards I won by respecting the craft, by treating my colleagues with professionalism, by understanding that being on television or in film is a privilege, not a right to tear people down. The air thickened. The studio lights seemed to blaze hotter, burning shadows across their faces as they faced off like two duelists. Lorraine, privilege? You want to talk about privilege? You think you can stroll in here with your Hollywood arrogance and lecture me about television? I built this show from nothing. I earned my place here while you were off playing dress-up in movies. The insult landed like a cheap shot, desperate and small. Playing dress-up, as if decades of artistry, of transforming the human soul on screen, could be dismissed as costume and pretense. Anthony's eyes narrowed. For a fleeting second, everyone in the room could see it. That same stillness, that quiet menace that had made Hannibal Lecter unforgettable. Anthony, repeating softly, playing dress-up, beat. Is that what you think I do? What we all do? He stepped forward, his voice low but commanding. Anthony, taunted. You sit in your little bubble, reading words written by others, asking questions researched by others, and you have the audacity to mock the craft of acting. Lorraine moved closer, invading his space, her anger vibrating in the air. Most guests would have faltered under that glare, but Anthony Hopkins was not most guests. He had faced kings, killers, critics, and come out unshaken. Lorraine. At least I'm real, shouting now. At least I don't hide behind characters and scripts. I face the world as myself, not cowering behind some made-up personality. The line struck at the oldest wound in an actor's heart. The accusation that art is a mask for cowardice. It was cruel, ignorant, and beneath her. Anthony didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Anthony. You think hiding behind a teleprompter, behind questions written for you, behind the safety of a morning show format, makes you more real than someone who's spent a lifetime exploring the deepest corners of the human soul? Beat. You've never been more wrong in your life. Camera operators scrambled to capture it all. Every twitch, every breath. What had started as another celebrity segment had become something else entirely. A reckoning broadcast, live to the nation. Lorraine laughed then, a brittle, bitter sound. Lorraine, human emotion? You mean pretending to eat people? Playing monsters and psychopaths? That's your idea of exploring humanity? Back to Hannibal Lecter again. She thought she'd found his weakness. She hadn't. Anthony's eyes softened, his tone dropping to something dangerously intimate. Anthony. Those monsters, those psychopaths you mock, They represent the shadows of who we are, the parts of ourselves we're too afraid to face. Playing them takes courage. It takes honesty. More honesty than anything you've ever done in this safe little studio of yours." Lorraine's composure finally cracked. Her hands trembled. Her voice shook with fury. "Lorraine! Safe little studio? Safe. This is live television. Anything can happen here. There's no director to call cut." Anthony stepped closer, not menacing but resolute, his voice calm and deliberate, cut through her chaos like a scalpel. "Anthony. No, there's no director. But there is truth, and right now, Lorraine, you're running from it." The silence that followed was electric, heavy, unbreathing, alive. Even the lights seemed to dim beneath the weight of it. Lorraine, sharply, almost shouting, "No second take if I mess up. This is real pressure, real stakes." Anthony actually smiled then, a slow, deliberate smile. But there was nothing kind in it. It was the expression of a man hearing something so profoundly absurd. He could only laugh at the irony. "Anthony," quietly savoring the words, "real pressure. You want to talk about real pressure?" He stepped forward, his voice now carrying the quiet authority of experience earned, not performed. "Anthony, Conted, try performing King Lear in front of 2,000 people, knowing every word, every gesture, every breath you take will be judged by those who've studied it longer than you've lived. Try carrying a $100 million film on your shoulders, knowing hundreds of people's livelihoods depend on you getting it right." He paused. "Anthony," Conted, "that's pressure, Lorraine. Beat. This is just you throwing a tantrum on live television." The line landed like a hammer, brutal in its precision. The audience murmured, a low wave of disbelief and awe. What had begun as a light morning interview was now spiraling into something raw, historic, and painfully real. Phones came out. Viewers at home leaned forward. Every second was being immortalized. Lorraine's breathing quickened, her composure cracking. The harsh studio lights caught the tremor in her hands, the streak of foundation smudging beneath her eyes. She'd painted herself into a corner, and now she was clawing for escape. "Lorraine, you think you're so superior, don't you? Because you're Anthony Hopkins, because you've got your Oscar, your fame, your precious Hollywood fans. You think that gives you the right to come here and humiliate me?" Her voice shakes. "Well, I've got news for you. This is my show, my studio, my rules. The repetition, the possessive edge." It wasn't confidence. It was desperation. The words revealed a woman losing her grip on the only power she had left. Anthony remained perfectly still. He didn't need to fight. His stillness was the weapon. When she ran out of steam, the silence that followed was suffocating. Then, in that voice, that deep, resonant voice that had commanded audiences across decades, he spoke. "Anthony, your show, your studio, your rules. Beat. And yet, with all that power, the best you can do is tear down someone who came here in good faith to talk about their work." He tilted his head slightly. "Anthony," Conted, "what does that say about you, Lorraine? About who you really are when the cameras are rolling?" The words sliced through the air like an executioner's blade. They weren't just an indictment of her professionalism. They were a direct strike at her soul. Lorraine's face faltered. The fury melted into something almost childlike. Fear or shame, or both. Lorraine, screaming, "How dare you question who I am? I've been doing this for 20 years. I've helped people. I've brought joy to millions. I've made a difference." But even as she said it, the words crumbled. Empty, hollow echoes bouncing off the sterile studio walls. There was no joy here, no kindness, just venom and exhaustion. Anthony shook his head slowly. For the first time, there was pity in his eyes. "Anthony, you want to know the difference between us, Lorraine? Beat. When I play a villain, when I portray someone dark, twisted. I'm exploring, trying to understand what makes them that way. Beat. You don't need to explore cruelty. You are cruel. This isn't a performance. This is who you are. The impact was immediate and devastating. Lorraine stumbled back a step, as if struck. The color drained from her face. The accusation that her cruelty wasn't part of an act but her nature hit deeper than any critique of her work ever could. Lorraine, shrill, breaking. I'm not cruel. I'm not the villain here. You are. You came here with your arrogance, your condescension, your Hollywood superiority complex. You made me do this. It was pure panic now. The unraveling of a persona built over decades. The audience could see it. The crew could see it. And most painfully of all, she could see it. Anthony didn't flinch. His tone was quiet, final. Anthony, I made you do this? Beat. I made you attack my age, my craft, my career. I made you try to humiliate me in front of your audience. He shook his head once. Anthony. Conted. No, Lorraine. That was all you. Beat, your choice. Your character. Your decision to be small, and petty, and cruel. He straightened his jacket, his composure immaculate. The confrontation for him was over. But Lorraine wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. Lorraine, furious, desperate. Fine, leave then. Run away like the coward you are. Prove to everyone that the great Anthony Hopkins can't handle a simple interview. Can't handle being challenged by a real journalist. The accusation was bait. One last, pathetic attempt to regain control. Anthony paused mid-step, then turned back to her, his expression unreadable. Anthony, real questions. Is that what you call character assassination and professional jealousy? He turned his gaze to the nearest camera. Straight through the lens, straight to the millions watching at home. Anthony, Conted. I came here to talk about my work, to connect with people who might enjoy what I've made. Instead, I found someone so bitter, so threatened by actual talent, she couldn't help but try to tear me down. He let the silence breathe. Anthony, Conted. That says everything about her, and nothing about me. Then he turned and walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the stunned stillness. Lorraine stood frozen, her empire crumbling around her. The cameras kept rolling. The control room didn't dare cut. And as the red light above the lens burned on, the nation watched. The moment Britain's morning sweetheart revealed something far darker beneath the smile.